So in this video, I'm going to name 3 reasons why the Miami Hurricanes cannot not only beat the Alabama Crimson Tide, but how they could potentially dominate them in the Week 1 matchup, which is going to be set up in Atlanta. Now, of course, the Alabama Crimson Tide, which you guys can see, I am a huge Alabama Crimson Tide fan. But yeah, Alabama, they're going to go in probably either as the #1 ranked school or the #2 ranked school in the country. And with the amount of players that are coming off of a national championship run, the Crimson Tide are going to be highly favored, probably by either 21, maybe 24, even maybe a little bit higher than that, to absolutely destroy the Miami Hurricanes. But the Miami Hurricanes have a lot of talent, and I do believe that they have the tools to potentially upset the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now, will it happen? Most likely not, but you never know. It is college football. But again, just in this particular video, I just want to make a video, and honestly, just to stir up a little bit of controversy, maybe stir up some debate between maybe Miami fans, Alabama fans, and who knows, maybe Bama fans will probably come after my head again after making a controversial topic such as this. So anyway, guys, let's hop straight into the #1 reason why. I want to talk about Alabama's offensive line, because you look at Alabama's offensive line and they're missing 3 guys. And when you're missing guys like Landon Dickerson, you're missing guys like Deontay Brown, you're missing guys like Alex Leatherwood. Those are 3 All-American, All-SEC players that were huge, impactful players from their offensive line, not just from a talent standpoint, but from an experience and leadership standpoint. Evan Neal, of course, is one of the best offensive tackles going into the 2021 season, but he's not the perfect offensive lineman. He was arguably the weakest offensive lineman out of all the 5 starters there when he was playing at the right tackle position, because you can make an argument his size was probably a little bit of a detriment, especially going against quicker edge rushers. Kind of the same thing with Alex Leatherwood on the opposite side. One of the biggest criticisms that scouts gave him was that in pass protection, it was honestly not the weakest, because he ended up being a first-round pick, and he was a guy that actually had a lot of great moments in pass protection, but it was arguably the weakest part of his game. The same thing can be said about Evan Neal. Phenomenal in run support, but in pass protection, arguably the weakest point of his game. Now, could we see some improvements? Definitely. By the time we get to Week 1, we could see some huge improvements. But overall wise, it was a huge weak point. You go to Chris Owens, who's going to be the center, a guy that actually has experience, and he actually started around 3-4 games after Landon Dickerson was hurt during the Florida game, and Chris Owens played pretty well. Now, Chris Owens, you can make an argument, for why he can potentially be a little bit of a weak point to your Alabama offensive lineman, is the fact that he's pretty much, he's average. He's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, he's not the most technical, but he is a very intelligent guy. He's a person that knows the Alabama playbook. He's a 6-year guy. And, obviously that experience can pay off. Now, we did see him start against Duke during Week 1, and they started him because he was extremely experienced. And because he really didn't hold his own in the Duke game, Landon Dickerson became the guy, and obviously Alabama didn't look back. So could the same thing happen in the game against Miami when you're going against guys like Niesta Silvera? Potentially. But Chris Owens obviously is a guy that's coming with a lot of experience, and Alabama fans are going to be extremely high on him. The only person that I'm really, really high on the offensive line is a guy like Emil Ekiyor. But even then, you have to worry about the other right guard spot and who's going to be filling in at the right tackle position. Now that Evan Neal is going to be kicked out to the left tackle spot, is it going to be Tommy Brown at right guard? Is it going to be Damian George? Is it going to be J.C. Latham as a true freshman? Is it going to be Tommy Brockemeyer? I mean, we don't know yet. And obviously, there's a bunch of talented 4- and 5-star kids there. But is it something that Manny Diaz and this Miami defensive line, led by Niesta, could they take advantage of that? We could potentially see that. Again, continuity and chemistry matters a lot. And even though, from a personnel standpoint, Alabama probably will blow Miami off the water, again, when you're missing calls, when you're missing that continuity a little bit in Week 1, one person messing up can definitely sink the entire ship. So we'll obviously see what happens in Week 1, but I definitely believe that is a #1 reasons why I think Miami's defensive line could potentially take advantage of Alabama's offensive line, a little bit of the experience that they have there at the beginning. #2 reason why is I would definitely say the linebacking position. Now, yes, people are looking at me and probably will think to themselves, what are you talking about? We have Christian Harris. We have Henry To'oTo'o. We have some, Deontay Lawson, and there's tons and tons of depth at the linebacking position that's full of 4 and 5-star talent. However, what was a key weak point for Alabama was the fact that they were weak in the slot and in the linebacking positions. More specifically, the tight end position. Tight ends did whatever the hell they wanted to do against Alabama's linebacking core for the most part. You look at guys like, Whittemire, and you look at guys like Kyle Pitts, and pretty much you look at this, some of the other tight ends that Alabama played against, it was kind of a weak point. Ole Miss's tight end had over 130 yards, and a big reason why was because a weak point was that Alabama's linebackers were not really good in pass coverage. And then you have to add in the fact that you have guys like Daniel Wright, who was a starter, who was Mr. Busted Coverage himself. Brian Branch and Malachi Moore was still learning the defense. And again, Jordan Battle and DeMarco Helms are not they're not the most rangy guys there. So in my opinion, could this be a detriment, right? As good as Christian Harris and Henry T and a lot of those guys are, they're not known for being the best linebackers in coverage. And again, the same thing can be said about Jordan Battle. Now, Malachi Moore is a playmaker there. He's a terrific playmaker. Brian Branch is excellent in run support. But again, you look at the history compared from last season, tight ends were a big problem for Alabama's secondary and their linebacking core in passing in those passing situations. And Alabama actually ranked, according to Pro Football Focus, as one of the worst teams against the tight end position. You have to add in the fact, too, you look at guys like Mallory, you have to add in guys like Charleston Rambo, who's one of the best vertical threats in college football. Miami has the talent at the receiving and tight end positions to definitely cause Alabama problems. Now, it all falls on De'Aaron King on how healthy he can be. But you look at Alabama's linebacking core and passing coverage, and even their second, or more specifically, their outside corners, because I know people would definitely rip on me if I definitely say their entire secondary. But you look at some of their outside corners, Josh Jobe is very, very solid and has the potential of being the next big guy. But the other outside cornerback position is a complete and total mystery. We just don't know whether it's Jaquez Robinson, whether it's Kool-Aid, Jalen Armour Davis. We just don't know who's going to be the other outside corner. And just like how I stated, their slot corners, their star position players, even in the linebacking positions, it has been a weakness in that specific slot position where Alabama has failed in pass coverage. Last but not least, the third reason is going to be Alabama's defensive line. Now, their defensive line is extremely talented as hell. You look at Christian Harris at the outside, not Christian Harris, Christopher Allen at the outside linebacking position as a 3-4 kind of a linebacker. You look at Will Anderson, was a complete and total monster. And they have tons and tons and tons of depth like Justin Agbogbe there, Byron Young, DJ Dale is a 2-year nose tackle starter, Timothy Smith is a rotational player, Jamil Burrows, and tons of talent for their past 2021 recruiting class that are definitely coming in for Darian Mathis. And, LeBron Ray, the list goes on and on and on. But Alabama has a history in these early kind of week 1 through week 4 matchups of giving up a lot of run support. They're not really that good in run support in the early stages. Now, maybe that's learning the defense a little bit there. Maybe it's continuity. Maybe it's just lack of physicality. Something is up with them in the early stages. I think a good example of this is definitely the 2019 game against Duke, where Duke actually had a lot of success in the run department. Now, in the passing game, not so much, but in the run department, they actually had some success. You look at the 2021 season, it was kind of the same thing. The early stages, again, whether if it was due to inexperience or maybe it was just due to the fact that Alabama would just lack motivation, they just weren't physical in the early stages. The Ole Miss game, where I don't even think it was just that. Alabama was simply out-physicaled, and then, of course, the linebacking positions were just going through the wrong holes. Ole Miss had over 200 yards, and it was Alabama's worst game in run support. Missouri had success in the run game. Georgia had a lot of success in the run game as well. So Miami can take advantage of that. And with Zion Nelson kind of leading the way for this young, talented offensive line, and Cameron Harris is one of the best running backs in the ACC, led with Don Chaney as your backup rotational player, then you have to add in the fact that if De'Aaron King can stay healthy, maybe Miami can take advantage of that. Again, Alabama has had a little bit of this history. And if Miami can take fully advantage of it, if this offense, if they can kind of scheme it to having some success there, who knows? We can definitely see something where the run game becomes a huge part of the reasons why Miami could potentially go with this upset. Now, again, for this particular video, it's just a what-if scenario. I'm not saying Miami is going to completely destroy the Alabama Crimson Tide, but still, it's fun. It's college football. As content creators, I love to make these type of videos. And again, if you guys don't like it, or if you guys feel like I'm saying something out of line, let me know in the comment section and we can have debates about it. I read every comment, and I definitely will respond to a majority of the comments down there. So let's have a discussion. Let's get it. But anyway, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button or the dislike button. Doesn't matter to me. Hit the subscribe button if you want to stay tuned for more Jan Sports and more college football content. And I'm out. Have a good day.